Bellerin.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the latest episode of Saved by the Bellerin, the Arsenal football podcast here on the Sports Talk Line Network. I'm Raphael, joined again by our full contingent from London, counterclockwise. To my left is Sam. Welcome, Sam.
Hello, mate. Thanks for having us again.
Him is Ryan. Ryan,
Hello,
always. And Dean down below in the final square. All right, gentlemen. It was raining at kickoff at the Etihad, and then the bad luck rained down on Arsenal as soon as the team set off. 10, 15 minutes of promising football, kind of probing football, and then it rained injuries. It rained bad decisions. It rained goals, and then in the end, it just rained a bad decision. 3-0 to Manchester City. Maybe the less we talk about it, the better, but we've got to talk about it. We waited so long for this match, and then it seems we left with more questions than when Arsenal ran out. For everything, for all the negativity, for all the talk, David Luiz, and we'll get to him in a moment. Initially, it seemed that there was a plan. Sam, maybe not quite as we described it, but there was a plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the plan was to entice City onto us, to soak up their pressure, which for the first 20, 25 minutes before the injuries, I thought we dealt with very well. I thought that our plan was, as I say, to soak up the pressure with Xhaka, to then do the long ball over to Garcia's side of the defence with Eddie and Aubameyang to run in behind him. Unfortunately, with Xhaka going off early doors, that really paid the price in that aspect, because with Dani Ceballos, you just don't see that kind of passing range. That could have then fallen on Pablo Mari, but unfortunately, again, he succumbed to injury as well. So, in terms of that, it's disappointing, because I think if we had them two players for the full match, I think that potentially we could have got something out of that game. But unfortunately, it wasn't to be, and it was a disappointing result.
Ryan, coming into the match, you were talking about the opportunities that might present themselves if you pressed City. And we saw that. We were talking about at the beginning. There was a long ball from deep over the top to Eddie, and sometime around the 5th minute or so. And we were all commenting he was offside by just a small margin. But it was clear that was going to be the target, as Sam said, just kind of use the speed to try to get behind them. And then it seemed that once, maybe even certainly after Xhaka was injured, they really started to drop back. They were pressing around the same time in the first 5 or 10 minutes. City was having some trouble adjusting to that. Was it down to injury, or was this a question of Arsenal not trusting itself?
I think it's a bit of both. I think, as Sam said, our best passer is Granit Xhaka. And having him not there, playing that ball there would be his bread and butter. That ball that they've pointed out, the two where Aubameyang tried to get through, Xhaka would have hit both of them. Simple. It'd be simple for him. And as soon as we had the two injuries and they realised what was happening, they kind of went into a shell. They kind of just stopped doing what the game plan was. Because I don't think they felt comfortable with Ceballos and Guendouzi in front of the defence, because neither of them have the defensive nous, really.
All right. And, coming into the match, one of the questions that we kicked around on the last pod, Dean, was, this is going to be Mikel Arteta's first match against his old boss, Pep Guardiola. And we wondered whether he might try to get cute. It seemed almost, again, once the injuries came, he dropped back. But also, there was a big story the morning of the match in The Athletic, talking about Arteta's project. And kind of the refrain was he was trying to learn who was in with him and who was out. And it seems like we got a really mixed bag of answers to that question. I mean, I'm trying to pivot to David Luiz here and be as polite as I can, but it seemed that there were several players that we might say at this point are out of the project. Are we overreacting to this? I mean, people are throwing David Luiz is done with Arsenal, or there's a lot of speculation about Mezzadozzo, who didn't even make the trip. But how many questions did we have answered, and how many still are sitting up in the air, in your opinion?
Well, the thing is, you've got to look at it like, it goes back to what we said last week about the fan base and how they react to things and everything else. Okay, so Mesut Ozil, he's always been a scapegoat to some sections of the fan base, even when he's not playing a game, when he don't turn up. There's this whole myth he doesn't do away games, He has practically started almost every game since Arteta took over. Right, he didn't turn up at this game. He didn't travel. Arteta said he would address it afterwards. He then, afterwards said it was tactical. Now, for me, that says there's a lot more to it than they're letting on. Whether it's personal, I mean, we all know Ozil has certain issues. Obviously he's just had a newborn. He's got a newborn now, and things like that. There could be a lot of reasons why he didn't travel, but I've seen a lot of people addressing the old, he just doesn't want to go to away games, things like that. I think that's a bit harsh. No one knows the situation. He has had health issues in the past, and that it could be something to do with that. We don't know, but things aren't looking comfortable, and he left a very ominous message on his Instagram, which said, no matter what, and it had, hashtag M10 or whatever it was, M010, hashtag Arsenal or whatever, which I instantly thought, okay, he's saying no matter what, he's Arsenal, And there were a couple of other questions around, and I think we mentioned it in the group, that he might be saying the kind of, no matter what, once a Gooner, always a Gooner, but it's possibly a goodbye message. Now, going back to Luiz, don't be polite. It is what it is. He's come out at the end and said, I'm holding my hands up. I'm responsible. No one else is. I don't think he personally made the choice to go out there. I think he might have been made to go out and talk, personally. At the same time, I don't, again, I thought maybe his message was one of positivity. I thought maybe he was saying he should have decided to do certain things before that, and it wouldn't have confused it, and he should have signed up, and he wants to stay. But as Sam pointed out, and I've said this a few times, Sam's actually got a very good gut feeling about him. He says certain things, and it always seems to be the case. And reading back more into the quotes, I think it's right. He says, look, there's decisions I should have made a couple of months ago, and I should have stuck to them, and maybe we wouldn't have been in this situation, basically. Which, as I read more into that, and rather than read the quotes, actually saw his body language, it seems he's saying, should I have decided and told Arsenal, no, I'm not signing the extension a couple of months ago, I may have not have been on the pitch to be responsible for those goals. And that, for me, is quite a passive-aggressive way of saying, I didn't want to be here in the first place, basically. But I felt bad, and I felt I owed it to stay along. That's what it sounds like he was saying now. And having said that, he then said, I want to stay. Arteta knows I want to stay, and he wants me to stay. I don't think he does. I don't think Arteta does want him to stay, and I don't think he wants to be here now. He's been talking to Benfica, supposedly. He's been talking to, well, actually, I think Benfica's president confirmed they'd had a chat. He's supposedly now been talking to Fenerbahce about a deal, and apparently they've offered him a better wage deal than Benfica. So God knows. But, they're not the only ones either. There's also been rumours this week that the club are possibly looking to listen to offers for Granit Xhaka and Lucas Torreira as well, which obviously Torreira is injured at the moment, so he can't say much about that. And, my sort of thoughts on Lucas. I love the guy, but him and Granit may well fall into that package of what we discussed previously, of whether or not, when Arteta said to Brighton, if people have to be convinced to play for the club, maybe it's not the best place for them. At first, I wasn't sure if they fit that mould, but as the stories have progressed and as the times progressed, and just thinking back to the fact that both of them were reportedly ready to walk in January, around Christmas time, to go in the January window, but then Arteta came in and had to sit them both down, and they decided to stay. That kind of still feels, like that kind of issue. So for me, I mean, there is a lot. there is a lot, and I think there's a lot to unpack as well at the minute when we're looking at this squad, even under Mikel right now.
All right, so let's continue to segment 2 now. Sam, we've talked about the enormity of the job that Mikel Arteta has taking over, as he did right at Christmas time, and we're discussing, how big is the job? And we were playing last week with the idea that there might be half a dozen new players coming in. We were discussing maybe that's the top end, and now it seems that might just be the low end. It might be a necessity to really turn this squad over. But in the short term, okay, looking in the short term, let's start with the back line where we focus our attention. Obviously, whether David Luiz wants to be here or not, he's on a red card, so he's not going to be available. Pablo Mari, we'll talk a little bit more about his contract a little in the program, is out with his injury, and I don't know if it's confirmed, but widely speculated he's done for these 10 games or the 9 games that remain. Does he have enough available to him kind of as a lifeboat to get him through these 9 games and get him where he wants to be?
I'm going to tap wood a lot and say yes, because we've got remaining, we've got Mustafi, Socrates, I saw today was back in training. We've also got Tierney that can play left centre back. You've got Sack Medley. You've got Ballard in the youth team as well. So in terms of centre backs, if we're looking at it, yes, we still have got enough to get through these remaining games. But for me, it's, have we got enough experience to get through these remaining games? We have to an extent. Because, as I said, we've got quite a few youth players that can come and step into the role, but that would literally be throwing them into the deep end. So would it be detrimental to their development if they was to be thrown into the deep end, and worst case scenario, we was to concede a lot and they were to make individual mistakes? Would the fans be patient enough to say, look, they're kids, they're in at the deep end, we can excuse these mistakes, but also the fans can also see that top 5 is still attainable. So it's that fine balance as to whether or not, if kids are put in, do you have that patience to be like, yeah, okay, the kids, it is what it is, this season's a bit of a write-off, or no, top 5 is attainable, we need to get that to progress as a club.
All right, Ryan. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. Just to touch in with the experienced centre-backs that we have got left, I've also forgot Rob Holding in there as well, coming back from injury. So in terms of senior centre-backs, I think that we have got enough to carry us through, but also in some games, I think that 1 or 2 of the youth centre-backs may need to step in and help out.
Let's move it forward. Ryan, is he facing a similar shortage? Obviously, Granit Xhaka's out, and we know Granit Xhaka was really important to his City game plan. It was probably going to be important to every match going forward, and we don't know how long he's going to miss. Hopefully, it's a short-term outage. But Ozil, again, we don't know his availability going forward, whether it's going to be part-time, all of the time, some of the time, none of the time. What about, what does he do there? What's his situation there?
I think with Mesut, you just need to leave him to get back to his normal self. Because he's a very outlandish individual, if you like. He doesn't associate with many people, so you just need to let him get himself back to the way he was before. And I would just play him, because we're better with him in the team than without him. Because as you saw on Wednesday night, we lacked a lot of creativity in the midfield. We look, as much as I championed Willock to start, I didn't realise how many chances we could have had to play our players through, and none of our midfielders could have put them through. So I think with Ozil, Arteta just needs to give him these days, maybe not even Brighton, just give him a week and then put him back into the team.
All right, and then let's move it forward. Dean, it looks like, again, given the injury issues in the back and in midfield, this team is going to lean as much, probably even more, on Aubameyang's creativity and his scoring power. Given that he had a very difficult match, some people were calling him an invisible man at Manchester City. Other people were saying he was working really hard and just got no support. But looking forward, what solutions? Again, we're talking about the lifeboat, the 9 games. What can Mikel Arteta do with the squad he has as far as finding the goals he needs to get results that he wants?
He needs to put Aubameyang central first and foremost. I know in the past we discussed it, and I know Ryan said he's a fan of Auba being on the left wing, and I know Sam said it's a detriment for him to be there. It's detrimental for him to be there, and for the squad, it's not the best place for him, which I agree. I've seen the way he's worked on the left, but he often finds himself in those situations. I mean, even when he was playing centre forward once or twice, he's found himself in those situations where he's had to come back. We need pace on the wings and trickery on the wings, like Pepe and Martinelli, even Pepe and Saka, with Auba up front. The midfield, I think, is where we're lacking, and obviously until we can go to the window, we're relying on obviously Ceballos. We're relying on people, Xhaka, Lucas if he comes back. Maybe the trickery and I guess the slickness of someone like Joe Willock. But we do need Ozil, I feel, in certain games as well. We need Ozil to be picking out them spaces, but we also need the people to retrieve those balls. So I think if we've got players like Saka and Pepe on the wings, and not relying on, say, like we did against City, and having like Auba on the wing and Eddie up front. Don't get me wrong, I love Eddie. I think he's great, but having Aubameyang as our star striker in the actual position he's supposed to play is what we need to do. But we're not going to see any improvement, I feel, really, until next season, until we've dug into the market and we've got it. Because these 9 games, they need to be played like cup finals, and City wasn't. It wasn't played like it was our cup final. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm at a loss, to be honest, Raf. All I can think of is that front three, but the problem and the area that needs, in my opinion, overhauling and really reworking to give us that strength is the midfield. And I know Xhaka can do it, but obviously he's injured. I believe Ceballos can do it against Brighton. I don't know. I'd like to see sort of something like Ceballos, Willock, and Ozil with Pepe, Saka, and Auba up top. I think that may be the best way to go.
All right, let's wind down. We need to move on from City, as the manager said. But one more question when we're wrapping up, because we do this frequently. We did it a lot with Emery. We did it a lot with Wenger. We'd see the lineups, and when the results were not so positive, or when they were just bad, a lot of people would say, Arsene lost this when he put out his sheet. Emery put himself, tied one arm behind his back when he put out his lineup. Was there anything about Arteta's lineup that puzzled you? I know there's been a lot of second guessing about his substitution patterns, but as you said, when you're down 2 goals, Pepe stayed on the bench, Martinelli stayed on the bench. Sam, let's start with you. Was there anything about Mikel's approach before the match, during the match, that had you scratching your head?
I think the substitution of Reece Nelson, as much as I love the guy, and as much as Arteta loves him as well, because obviously, if you read my articles, then The quote that Arteta's said in there, that he's a special kind of player. He can isolate players one-on-one. But for me, if you're looking for an outball in that game, Pepe is the player that you need to have on. I did also question Guendouzi in the middle of the pitch at the start of the game, because for me personally, I don't think Guendouzi is a starter in this team, because there is quite a lot wrong with his game that I seem to find, and obviously I think that he can progress, as I said many a times on other pods, if his attitude improves. But also, as I was chatting to you guys off air, when a player is bursting past Guendouzi, he never sprints or attempts to get quicker to catch that player. He always begs for the centre-back to come out of position to then potentially expose that centre-back. Because if, say for example, who was it? I think it was Bernardo Silva burst past him, he then begged for Mustafi to come out of centre defence. If he's going to pass it into the striker, that's one easy layoff and the player's through on goal, because there's not a chance that he's going to make them extra yards up. So, and also with Guendouzi, even if he's facing the play, he always drops into our centre-backs. We need to engage a lot higher up the pitch. So for me personally, as I said in the pod the other day, I said we needed to start as Xhaka, as a defensive midfielder, Ceballos and Willock in that middle of midfield. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And although looking at it, we didn't really build through the middle of midfield, because I noticed on social media a lot of people were slating Joe Willock. And I thought that was a bit harsh, because we didn't really build through midfield. We didn't really play through him. We didn't really play to his strengths either. So to blame him, a guy that's still learning his trade in the first team as well, I don't think that was a fair reflection. And obviously, we know how well drilled Man City are. So yeah, for me, them selection, the two selections and substitutions were ones that I had to put question marks against.
All right, Ryan, was there something in the plan that left you left it again questioning what he was going to do? I think you were expecting a far more aggressive game plan than what we saw.
Yeah, I thought our fullbacks were a little bit too timid. You didn't really see Tierney go on his marauding runs up the pitch. Bellerin didn't. I don't think I saw Bellerin go past the halfway line. And that was a bit shocking for me, because I've said previously how Arteta sets us up with one of the fullbacks higher than most of the midfield. And I never saw that in that game. And the other thing that I questioned as well was Saka on the right. I know he can play there, but against City away, where you need the experience of someone that's played there before, I feel Saka would probably been better on the left, because as you saw with his crosses from that side in the second half, it was a lot better than him cutting inside or trying to cross it with his weaker foot. Other than that, and as Sam said, maybe the Guendouzi selection, which Guendouzi can't really control the game at the moment because obviously he's still young and learning. Ceballos probably would have been a better choice for that midfield position next to Xhaka. But other than that, I think they're the three things that shouted at me when I was watching. So I said in the group while it was on, I said, it doesn't look like we're trying, doesn't look like we're pressing hard enough. And I said in my video previewing the game, if we don't press City, they will pick us apart. And after the injuries, they picked us apart. They destroyed us. De Bruyne have got too much space in midfield because the three midfielders that we had don't have the awareness to play deeper than the Xhaka role or the Torreira role, if you'd like. And that really stung us a lot in the middle of the pitch, because once De Bruyne gets 2 yards of space, it's game over. He's the best player in the league at that. So they're the three things that hit me in the face while watching it.
All right. And Dean, I know that you had questions about the late substitutions. I mean, it wasn't totally unexpected, but because of the horrible injury to the defender Garcia around the 90th minute, Arsenal did get a chance to at least play 10v10, even though it was only for 11 minutes. But by that point, Mikel Arteta had already kind of rolled his dice with his attackers, and he left the real kind of the maximum attacking options on his bench. Pepe didn't play, Martinelli didn't play, and that was discussed a little bit, not discussed so much, but for me, of the substitution patterns, I know there was a lot of questioning when Arteta took over, that Emery was already benching Pepe a little bit. I haven't heard much made about the fact that he didn't play at all. More attention has been given to Ozil, but I'm wondering if he doesn't play a lot soon, if that question doesn't come back.
Yeah, I was pretty baffled by that, to be honest. I mean, I think it was Ryan. I know we all mentioned it. I think Ryan said even before the game, when we saw the lineup, to look at the fact we're probably going to have the legs of Pepe and Martinelli in the second half, running City ragged. I know we all kind of alluded to it. And the minute those subs, obviously because of the new 5-sub rule, as it was pointed out to me, that obviously you can only still do that in 3 substitution spots. So because of the 2 injuries, we obviously had to bring Xhaka off and Mari off. So the other 3 subs had to be made at once. And I genuinely thought if they were going to do that, it was going to be Pepe, Martinelli, and I don't know, it tends to be Lacazette, doesn't it, coming on near the end. So when he came on, I wasn't surprised. But to see that, they were bringing on sort of Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Reece Nelson instead of Nicola Pepe and Gabby Martinelli, I don't know. It's those moments. It's like when you said earlier. It's like when people said previously, Arsene Wenger's this when he's when the sheet comes out and Emery is. The same was kind of said for Arteta's original lineup, and then when those subs were made, it's kind of like you really want to, like me. I mean, I really warmed to the fact, and I said last week, I really warmed to the fact that he's a manager. I'm so glad I was wrong about what I initially thought, etc., etc. But when you see sort of substitutions made like that, I mean, I know I'm not a manager. I'm just a fan, but. And he is the manager, but sometimes I still don't think there's anything wrong with questioning those moves. And I can't think what his thought process was and his plan was in doing that. But when it comes back to specifically Nicola Pepe, a big fan of his, watched more of him when we were linked, starting from sort of like the January, February of last year. Watched more of him then when we were first originally linked than I had previously. But been a big fan of what I've seen of his, and I can't see it. Emery didn't really pick him when Freddie was coaching for a bit. Didn't pick him really, and now Arteta's not putting him up there. You do have to ask: is there something going on? From what I understand personally, from just, what people said, journalists, anyone that's, watching training and things like that, when players have spoken about him being there doesn't appear to be anything within his attitude. And watching how he performs on the pitch, you'd like to think that he's not exactly doing anything wrong or rubbish in training. So it does beg the question of why isn't he being picked more than I think he should. I can't really answer it, but it is something I guess we'd keep an eye on going forward and see if maybe Arteta does pick him some more. I mean, he may have just not been comfortable at the minute. He may have had a niggle. Who knows? But there hasn't, as you said, there's not been anything really mentioned about it. It's all been focused on Mesut. But yeah, no, it is a baffling one. It is confusing.
All right, we've gone around and talked about short-term challenges for Arteta for the 9 games that are left, and I want to go back and talk about the enormity of the task going into the rest of the calendar year, going into the next season. But I want to put that off for a moment. A match coming up tomorrow. They're playing Brighton. They get a chance to kind of cleanse this terrible taste out of their mouths. What can Mikel, let's start with you, Sam. What can Mikel Arteta do to just get this bad dream out of everybody's mind and get everybody focused on better football? Does it take a lineup? Does it take tactics? What do you think he's going to do tomorrow?
I was saying on Twitter today, even if you've got a 75% Mesut Ozil, you play him. Even if it's for 60 minutes, same with Socrates. Because of the injuries that we've got, and obviously it was very patent, the lack of creativity that we had against Man City. I think Mesut plays for at least 60 minutes for the start of the game. Because with him, as I've said previously, he does do the hard running, but also he gives us something different in terms of creativity. I'd also start Pepe. I'd potentially push Aubameyang forward into the centre forward position. Martinelli on the left. If you're going to do substitutions, I would definitely do Saka for Martinelli at some point during the game. Bearing in mind you can only do 5 substitutions in 3 stages. So if you're going to be looking to replace the attack, I'd leave that probably till around about the 75th minute. Give the other guys a good 15 minutes to run out. The midfield, at the moment, the midfield pretty much takes care of itself. It has to be Ceballos, Willock, and you're going. I'll say start with Ozil there. As it's been discussed already with Guendouzi, I don't think that he's ready to control the midfield. I know there's been articles come out this week to say that Guendouzi is Arteta's conductor in the middle of the pitch there. But at this moment in time, I just don't think that it attributes to his game. Yes, he's very good at talking to other players on the pitch, but does he do what he's supposed to be doing? No. So yeah, that's what I'd do for Brighton. Because do I see Brighton being as tough as Man City? No, but as Arteta says, we've got to be on our game because Brighton can give a game to anybody if they're on their top game.
All right, Dean, I'm going to throw it back to you. I'm going to kind of wind back. Similar question. Does Arsenal need to turn over the roster going to Brighton, given how quickly the next game has come up? Does he, is it a matter of getting these players who weren't involved in the City game involved as soon as possible, making sure everybody's invested in moving the squad forward? What would you do?
There needs to be some form of sort of rotation, given sort of obviously how quickly these games are coming now for this restart. But the thing is, there's only sort of certain areas you can do it. Obviously, Cedric won't be back for another couple of weeks. Don't know how. So I think Kolasinac actually is fully fit, but I still think that Tierney needs to be out there on the pitch. So obviously Bellerin would start. Obviously with our centre back issues, we've got Socrates coming back. He was training again. We've obviously got Mustafi fit. There's obviously that situation with obviously Holdings available, but there's also been talk today. I'm not sure how sort of viable it's going to be. Is that because of our extenuating centre back circumstances, we may actually be allowed to field Saliba in these last games. Now, I don't know again how sort of viable that is and how reliable that report is, but that's something that we read today. I know that the guys said something about it earlier as well. So I mean, there's always the option of putting him out there. Midfield, definitely think we need to stretch that. I think Guendouzi needs to spend some time on the bench. He hit the ground running under Emery. some reason, I mentioned this on a pod before, but for some reason he seemed to click with Emery's tactics to start with. I mean, against City, when we had City and Chelsea, our first two games when we first signed Guendouzi, even though we didn't win, he was one of the best players on the pitch at that time, in my opinion. And, you know, I really praised him, but watching him more and more and more, he just doesn't do it for me right now. And, I think he needs to sit out a little bit. As I said earlier, what I would have played, and obviously with Ozil up there, I think we need him. And as Sam just said, Willock and Ceballos, we need to sort of switch it out a little bit. We need Pepe and Martinelli or Saka on that left side, and Aubameyang up top. I don't know. Obviously, Arteta trusts them, but I don't know why he started with Eddie against City up top. That still baffles me now. Don't get me wrong. Out of the three up top at the beginning, he was the only one that was really doing any work. But I don't know. I just don't know why he started him. I feel Guendouzi, Eddie, people like that. I think they need to sit back now, and we need to. It's definitely something that's going to get us going. It's definitely a rotation. I think a bit more energy, different energy. It is Brighton, as Sam said. They're not going to come at us as strong as City did, but they can bring their own flavour, and every team needs to be looked at like, I don't know, a prime Barcelona. We need to really focus and play our A game.
All right, Ryan, team that's had trouble all season, whether they're winning, drawing, losing, they just have trouble scoring goals when they go on the road. Certainly they didn't score any on Wednesday. How does Mikel Arteta get this engine engaged tomorrow?
He's just got to trust the strikers to put the ball in the back of the net when they get the chance. I mean, it sounds simple, but it really just is. But he needs to start the right forwards, because if you start the wrong ones, we won't have any chances. So for me personally, Ozil has to start behind Aubameyang. I was such a big advocate of Aubameyang playing out wide. I just don't think it's good for us at the moment, because we need our best goal scorer in the best goal scoring positions. And right now, on that left wing, it's just not working. So I'd rather have the energy of a Saka or Martinelli out there, and then have the energy of Pepe on the other side, who can just absolutely rinse a fullback. And I was going to do an analysis for this game, but I thought I'd leave it for the pod. And Brighton are going to counter-attack us. They're going to sit back and they're going to hit us on the counter. So the best thing we can do is keep the ball and hit them with pace on the wings. Because their fullbacks, their left back, I think his name is Dan Burn. He's 6'5" and slow as per Mertesacker. So if you have Pepe get up against him, good night, sir. So I think with Mikel Arteta, he just needs to pick our fastest front three and have the quarterback in behind him with Mesut Ozil.
Okay, so we kind of deferred this a little bit, but it's been the topic offline coming into this, was just what is the enormity of the task in front of Mikel Arteta now? How big is it? We talked about how big it is going from now till the end of the season, but regardless of where he finishes, it looks like he's calling out for it already. In this summer, in this summer window, there's going to be a massive turnover. News today that Pablo Mari's deal has been concretized. It's done. He's staying with Arsenal. That caused some short-term, I think, chatter on social media. Some people like it. A lot of people don't. Dean, let's start with you in this segment. How big is the job in front of him? Again, we were talking numbers. Ideally, what do we expect? What's the minimum now we can expect in turnover? And where do you put the resources going into this window?
Okay, so just to clarify, from back to front, front to back, does it matter? All right. Okay. Cool.
It's up to you.
Right. So obviously, you said this is the confirmation of Pablo Mari. For me, I feel we need a complete overhaul. So obviously, goalkeeper we keep Bernd Leno, absolutely 100%. There's no qualms about that whatsoever. But I do feel we need a more. I love Emi Martinez. Don't get me wrong, but I feel we need someone more willing to play that backup role. That's absolutely not digging at Emi, because obviously you'd have to be quite soft to be willing to sit behind Bernd. But he's obviously not willing to do that, and that's fine. So I feel he's going to go. So we need someone along those lines. I don't know if we're keeping Matt Macy on or not. Right back, we definitely need a sturdier backup to Bellerin. I don't see Cedric staying. There's still not even talk about whether or not he's going to do the short-term contract for the restart. Centre backs, we need to absolutely overhaul. Mustafi, as much as he's impressed under Arteta, Socrates, Mavropanos, I don't know what's happening with him, but he looks to be in demand absolutely elsewhere. Holding possibly alone. Chambers, I think he needs to go on as well. Left back, Kolasinac. Haven't heard much about what's going on with him. He was there at City, but don't know the situation, whether he's fully healed yet or not. And also don't know sort of what's going on there. I feel possibly some more competition at left back, maybe shift him on a bit. Midfield, as I said to you, is the place we need to focus. Guendouzi not doing it. So either loan him out somewhere where he can learn a bit more under different guidance, perhaps. Obviously, we've got Willett coming in, but he's young. We're going, there's that whole talk recently with Arteta making these comments and quotes that seem to indicate that he doesn't feel we've right now got the energy and the time to sort of wait on the young guys to build and to grow. So we need experience to come in and allow them younger ones to learn from these guys rather than sort of chucking them in there and watching them grow. So I feel we need someone, guys we've talked about previously, like a Thomas Partey, Orkan Koku, Mark Rocker. We need a complete kind of midfield shake-up, I feel. Elneny is going to be gone. Mkhitaryan's going to be gone from the wing. There's talk of Ainsley Maitland-Niles being shifted on. Whether or not he does, we don't know. Up top, that's the tough one because is it going to be Lacazette? Is it going to be Aubameyang? We all know what we want. We all know what our preference is. But every single newspaper article I read, every single editorial I look at makes a point that Arsenal are looking at X player for the top to replace the outgoing Aubameyang, or to play for Arsenal if Aubameyang goes. For some reason, Lacazette is never mentioned, yet it seems to be that he's the one that's less kind of, I don't know, I want to say focused here, but the focus is less on. So I do feel we need another striker, as I do feel at least one of those guys is going, and it's already been reported the club won't let them both leave. Wings, I think it's the one position we're covered on. I really do. And it's the one position I think we're comfortable with. And there's all this talk of Kluivert possibly coming in. There's reports that we're still looking at Sengi Zunda, both from Roma. And with Martinelli and Saka on one side, Pepe and, Nelson to cover, I guess, on the other side to back up. Aubameyang can play on that left wing. I feel that the wing is the one place we've actually got that's solid. But outside of that, defence needs a revamp. Midfield needs an absolute revamp.
All right. Sam, you've been doing a very thorough rundown of sector by sector, starting in the back and moving forward. And those of you who are just watching the pod, if you haven't read his pieces that are on the Sports Talk Line page, I highly recommend them. You just put one very long, detailed piece on the defense. Quite surprising, as you pointed out in the pod last week, Arsenal has 14 backliners under contract right now. They have a lot of decisions to make. But I want you to give us a number. Again, we were talking about smaller numbers, but it seems that if the job is bigger, how massive is this overhaul? And where is the emphasis going to be this summer, in your opinion, based on what you've seen as you've gone position by position, player by player?
I think, like Dean was saying, a lot of it's going to be down the spine of the team, because where we've got a lot of defenders, we've got 14, and that's literally right across the back line. 2 of them are youth players, and a lot of the others are first team. And for me, that is a massive imbalance within this Arsenal team, because if you're considering that we can only register 25 players for a season in the first team, then for me, having 14 of them being at centre-back, that's outrageous. And obviously, we all know the ins and outs of this team already, and I think that in the summer, you could probably see up to 10 to 12 players going out, albeit on loan, Bosman, selling them. And I could see probably about, I'd say, on the more cautious side of things, 7 to 9 players coming in. And that'll be right down the spine of the team, because obviously a lot of it is dependent on strikers as well, because with Aubameyang, I think that he is staying, from what I've been discussing with people and the narrative, and also a lot on social media as well. I think that he will be staying. Lacazette, will I be sad that he'll be going? No. He was a £50 million signing that we thought, yes, he's going to hit the ground running. He's going to elevate Arsenal. 6 months into that, Wenger went out and got Aubameyang, because you could see exactly what the issue was. And for me, at Arsenal, Lacazette has regressed. So he's got to be a definite out. The central midfield, as Dean said, I think the whole centre midfield needs to have a revamp. We need it to be bigger, stronger, more athletic, ball-playing players, but also players that can have the ball at their feet, drift past the player, and have a lot more of a ball-carrying ability in our midfield. Because at the moment, we've got passers, we haven't got ball carriers, and if they try and carry the ball, they just get bullied. And that's one thing I think that we really need to get rid of at Arsenal, albeit at the back or through the midfield. Arsenal being bullied, that needs to go, in my opinion. And I think with the targets and profiles of targets that Arteta's identified, I think definitely that stigma with Arsenal will disappear. A player that I think that we potentially could be targeting at right back is West Ham's Nketiah. But saying that, if we don't end up getting him, we got Owese Tutu at Bochum, although he has been playing as a right midfielder. He's a right back traditionally. So with him, that kind of fits Arteta's philosophy of having attacking fullbacks. He'll be able to use a lot of his attacking abilities to challenge Bellerin. But in terms of understudies, I think with the youth, if we're going to look at anything, look back at Man United's 92 team. They had very experienced players as the main core of the team. But also with the squad fillers, they were very talented youth players. And yes, they got game time. And we've also got to think about, if we've got Europa League or we've got Champions League, we're looking about 50 games plus this season if we go most of the way through the tournament, along with the Premier League, also with the Carabao Cup. So with that, there's going to be a lot of game time for everybody next season. But yeah, I think that at the moment we need to get rid of a majority of the team. Obviously, in my article, you can see with the defence and the goalkeepers, who I think that we should keep and sell. Hopefully by Sunday, you should see the midfield and attack as well. So, yeah, ultimately, a lot of turnover this year, this transfer window, and we've got a type of profile of player that we're looking at. So, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of turnover.
All right. So, Ryan, you get to close this out. And I want to say that, in the recent pods, you have probably been the most bullish on replacing from within. You've talked about Nketiah, you've talked about Emile Smith-Rowe, players of that nature who are coming from the organization, all right, from within the organization, who are ready to take that next step. And also, after the City match, there's a lot of discussion about how the back line needs to be blown up. And I think, as Sam just mentioned, there are a lot of players that need to go out. But if we actually take a step back, we know William Saliba is already on contract. He's an Arsenal player. We know that Pablo Mari is going to be an Arsenal player. So those are those two. As we spent a lot of time in the last pod talking about Diogo Upamecano, that he could already be, if not under contract, close to contract. So in many ways, it seems that while there's a big project, a big task at hand, some of it might already be closer to completion than we realize. You've got a huge piece that you just released today on Thomas Partey. And if those of you out in Sports Talk Line land, follow the pod, if you're not watching Ryan's videos, you're really missing out. And this is probably his best one. But your argument was, and I'll encapsulate it, but I'm going to let you run with it, that he can really do the job of three players. He's that good. Is the task really, as Sam maybe hinted at, clearing the dead wood and just bringing in a core, maybe not going scattershot, but bringing in a handful of really top quality party level players, as we talk about Arsenal level, that getting back to finding those Arsenal level players?
Yeah, I think I've always been of the opinion that you need two very good players for each position. And I think if you have five incredibly good players, so for us, that would be Leno, Upamecano, Partey, and I'm going to throw out there that I want Jack Grealish in our number 10. And then Aubameyang, there are five incredibly good players. And then you build around that spine. And then you can promote your youngsters into the backup positions. Like our right wing, you have Nelson. Left wing would have Martinelli and Saka. And you'd have Eddie Nketiah behind Aubameyang. So as long as you've got those five incredibly good players, I think around it, they need to be good. Not what we have now, because they're all very terrible, but especially a centre-back, you need a good partner for your incredibly good defender. So if we got Upamecano and then we've got a very good partner with William Saliba, that builds for a good partnership. And then you go into midfield, you have Grealish, Xhaka, and Partey. That's a very good, balanced midfield. And then you have your youngsters out wide with Martinelli, Saka, Nelson, Pepe. So I don't think we need to go and bring in masses of players. I think we'll see a mass exodus out the door. But I think if we just stuck all of our money on those incredibly good players and promote our youth players into positions that probably don't need so much development, whereas Nelson's always going to be good at attacking. Martinelli's always going to be good at attacking. So those kind of positions don't need that much development. And as Sam mentioned, Osei Tutu, he's developing really well on loan. So we got youngsters there that can play for us. And I just want to throw out there as well that Zach Medley, I think, should get a chance as well. The guy is 6'4" plus, and he's quick, left-footed. So I think he deserves a chance as well. I've watched him a few times. He does seem quite nervous, but that's probably understandable playing for a team like Arsenal and having fans like the ones on Twitter throwing mad stuff at you every week. So, yeah, I think with our youth players, they're all very dependable as well. They know what it takes to play for Arsenal. So I think we should promote them, sign 5 really good players, and promote our youth team.
All right, and as you mentioned, if of those 5 exceptional that you in your ideal spine, 2 already are in the squad. We've got Aubameyang and Leno. All right, we're in injury time, as it were, pod-wise. We're pushing an hour. Sam, let's start with you. They're going to Brighton tomorrow. We finally going to see that result that we've been pining for weeks. Arsenal going to get back in the win column after such a promising start to 2020.
Yeah, I think tomorrow will be a 3-1 win. I am going to go with, if Martinelli starts, he'll bag 1, Orba 2.
Okay. Dean, what's your prediction for tomorrow?
I want to abstain, but I don't know. I'm after how positive I was last week, and then what happened. But no, I kind of just want to enjoy the game. But let's see, 2-0 Arsenal. Go on then, 2-0 Arsenal. Again, like Sam said, I think Martinelli will get 1 if he starts or if he plays. And I think Lacazette's going to score.
Interesting. All right. Ryan, is it time? Are we back in the winning column after that one just forgettable afternoon or evening in Manchester?
So I was incredibly positive and very out there with my prediction against City. So I'm going to be a little bit more reserved here. I think we're going to slug out a 1-0 win. I think it's going to be a horrible game to watch. I think we're not going to be playing very well. I think we'll be saved by that man again, our number 14. I have to see Brighton as one of our bogey teams. We've played 4 games against them and never beat them. We've drawn 2 and lost 2. So I think it's another one of those games where we need to hope our special players produce special moments again.
All right, so I guess it comes down to me. I'm gonna second that. I'm a little shaky about them. I remember they went down to Brighton and they've had trouble down there, scoring, and certainly, as you said, they haven't been winning. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because I'm a homer, and I'm going to say an ugly 2-1 win. But as you said, you said 1-0. I think they're going to surrender at least a goal. So, but they'll find a way somehow to pull it out. And I think when we reconvene early next week, we'll have happier news to digest. All right. So that brings us to the end of our second week pod where football is back. So I think we're all happy for that, even though we didn't get the result that we hoped for. But again, for me, for Raphael, for Sam, for Ryan, for Dean, thank you for joining us here on Sports Talkline. Obviously, we have a new webpage that's up. Saved by the Bellerin webpage on the Sports Talkline Network. Go look for that. Obviously, Sam's bringing out long-form pieces. Ryan's cranking out videos. Dean and I will be joining contributions to the website as we have the website up. Join us all on social media. Our lower thirds are coming, so you know where to find us. Again, for all of us here at Saved by the Bellerin, thank you for following. Good night. Saved by the Bellerin is a Sports Talkline production. This pod features work by Dean, Raphael, Ryan, Sammy, Marissa, and Freddie. Music is provided by Purple Planet Music, which can be found online at www.purple-planet.com. Thank you for listening.